Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to decode a hidden language that, believe it or not, we all speak every single day. We're talking about the language of a hug.
On the surface, a hug seems super simple, doesn't it? You just wrap your arms around someone. What's there to talk about? Well, as we're about to find out, there's a whole universe of meaning packed into that one simple gesture.
It turns out every single hug is actually a complex conversation. There are hormones firing off, deep psychological signals being sent, and a whole set of unwritten social rules that, let's be honest, most of us are just trying to figure out as we go.
So where do we even begin with all this? Let's go right to the source, to what's happening inside our brains when we hug, because it really all starts with chemistry. Okay, so meet the absolute star of the show, oxytocin. You've probably heard it called the love hormone or the bonding hormone, and that's for a really good reason. This little chemical is basically the foundation for our feelings of trust and connection.
You can think of oxytocin as our body's own natural social glue, but it's more than that. It doesn't just make you feel all warm and fuzzy. It actively fights stress by lowering your cortisol levels. It's like a built-in anti-anxiety medicine, and the prescription is a simple, warm hug.
And the way it works is so direct. You get a hug, you hold someone's hand, that physical touch is the trigger. It signals your brain to release oxytocin, which then floods your system and makes you feel calm, connected, and safe. It's this powerful little feedback loop that keeps our social bonds strong.
Okay, so the chemistry part is pretty straightforward. Touch makes us feel good, but the psychological messages that are being sent at the same time, well, that's where things start to get way more complicated. Yeah, that simple chemical reaction is the foundation for a really complex psychological language. And, it's a language that is surprisingly easy to misinterpret.
So according to research, touch can communicate at least 3 really powerful and sometimes kind of tricky messages. It can signal arousal, and that can be good or bad. It can be a show of dominance, since it's usually the more dominant person who initiates touch. And of course, the big one, it can signal attraction.
And right here is where the wires get crossed so easily. The sources point out a classic example. A woman might initiate a friendly, totally platonic touch, but a man might misinterpret it as a sign of sexual interest. See? The message sent isn't always the message that's received.
And honestly, this quote from Dr. Riggio just nails it. There is no universal dictionary for this stuff. The meaning of a hug, a touch on the arm, anything, it all depends on the context, the relationship, who the people are. Context is absolutely everything.
So, if it's all about context, are there any clues we can look for in the hug itself that might help us figure out what's going on? Let's break down the mechanics.
Okay, let's look at a side-by-side. A friendly hug, that's usually all on the shoulders, maybe a quick pat on the back, and there's space between your lower bodies. But a romantic hug, that's a whole different story. We're talking full body contact. It lasts longer, you get gentle caresses instead of pats. It's really that feeling of kind of melting into the other person.
And get this, it's not just how you hug, but from where. A poll found that a majority of people, nearly 60%, think a hug from behind is way more romantic. It has this element of surprise and spontaneity that just reads as more intimate.
But that element of surprise is exactly why we have to talk about the most critical piece of this entire puzzle. Because all these signals, all these chemicals, they mean absolutely nothing if the touch isn't wanted. We have to talk about consent.
This quote from a Reddit thread just captures it perfectly. It highlights how even when you have good intentions, if you escalate touch without being sure, you put the other person in this awful position of having to say no after their boundary has already been crossed. And this is such an important and, I think, empathetic way to look at these situations. It's often not about malice or someone being a bad person. As one person put it, it's about running on an outdated operating system for consent, one that relies on guessing signals instead of just talking.
So that's the big question, right? If trying to read minds is so risky and often fails, how do we actually get it right? How do we upgrade the software?
Well, the answer isn't to get better at guessing, it's to stop guessing altogether and start communicating. The sources suggest using simple, direct words. Questions like these might feel a little awkward at first, but they replace all that ambiguity with clarity and respect, which can make someone feel incredibly safe with you.
And this is a total win-win situation. For the person initiating, you can't go wrong. You know exactly where you stand. And for the person on the receiving end, wow, hearing that kind of direct, respectful question earns massive trust and, as this person put it, a whole lot of safety credits.
So, when you boil it all down, the goal isn't to perfect your hugging technique. It's about creating a moment of real, genuine, consensual connection, where both people feel seen, they feel safe, and they feel respected.
And that's our explainer on the hidden language of a hug. It's something to think about, right? That maybe the key to the most amazing physical connections doesn't start with a perfect touch, but with a few simple words.